Despite conservative and sound financial management, the city of Madison Heights faces a severe funding crisis that is affecting all Michigan municipalities. Following a 2-year decrease in city property tax revenue, the city's fall 2010 long-range financial outlook presentation forecasts an additional reduction of $2.8 million in city property tax revenues and $500,000 in state revenue sharing over the next 3 years. Updated estimates show a $4.9 million gap between revenues and expenditures in this year's upcoming budget, which is projected to increase to $5.8 million by 2014. Over the last 2 years, the city has implemented $5.2 million in gap measures and cut back some city services while trying to maintain core services. To prevent a shortfall and keep next year's budget in balance as required by law, City Council requested additional gap reduction measures from all available options. To accomplish this, the city manager and staff recommended additional employee pay and benefit concessions, expenditure reductions, and alternate funding to maintain the library and avoid additional layoffs of essential public safety and service employees. After considering all the options and having already made significant cuts in prior years, City Council approved 2 ballot proposals for the May 3, 2011 election. Ballot Proposal L to establish up to $1 million of dedicated property tax levy to ensure the continued operation of the library and to partially restore reductions made over the last few years. And Ballot Proposal MR to restore the millage authorized by Madison Heights voters lost as a result of the state-approved Headley Amendment, and to avoid layoffs of police, fire, and Department of Public Services employees. In an effort to protect the taxpayer, the council limited these ballot proposals to 10 years. Funding trouble in detail. With the near collapse of the American automotive companies, state and national recession, and resulting increase in unemployment and home foreclosures, the city is seeing a deep decline in property values. Property taxes make up 71% of the city's general fund revenues that support the basic core services of the community. Over the last 5 years, the market value of an average single-family home in Madison Heights has dropped from $138,000 to $89,000, or 36%. Staff forecast that this decline will continue for at least the next 3 years, when the average market value will have dropped to $71,000, a 49% decline during this 8-year period. The city's second largest source of general fund revenue is state shared revenues, which amount to $2.4 million or 8.5% of the budget. The major components of state shared revenue are the constitutional sales tax and the statutory sales tax. State shared revenues are taxes collected by the state and transferred back to the municipality based on the state constitution and laws. In the last 10 years, the state has frozen or cut statutory shared revenues, costing the city $2.1 million annually in lost revenue. City response. Due to declining property tax revenues down $2.4 million per year and cuts in state shared revenues, the city cannot fund our current services. To address declining revenues, the city has already reduced its workforce by 36%, closed the branch library and youth center, cut all paid staff from the nature center, cut operating hours at the senior center, main library, and city hall, contracted out trash collection, custodial, and assessing services, consolidated animal control with Hazel Park, and eliminated funding for the spring cleanup day, boards and commissions dinner, February coffee concerts, TGIF summer concerts, Memorial Day parade, festivals in the park, and tree lighting. Prior to bringing forward any ballot issues, City Council directed that everything be done to reduce cost, such as efficiency measures, downsizing the workforce, labor contract concessions, adjusted user fees, elimination of lower priority services, a safe drawdown from the fund balance, and layoffs. The city's $5.2 million in past gap measures are the result of that effort. The remainder of this program will focus on the 2 proposals residents will be asked to consider on May 3rd. Ballot Proposal L. The library is now open 6 days a week and is staffed by a full-time library director, librarian, and library technician, along with 10 part-time staff. The department is responsible for providing information in various formats, including educational, recreational, and cultural materials, participating as a member of the Library Network, which allows for the electronic interloan of items from 64 regional libraries, delivering books to homebound patrons and providing services to a significant and varied immigrant population, and offering public internet access and computers for word processing. Library utilization in 2010 included 108,000 building visitors, 112,000 books and materials circulated, and 35,000 public internet access sessions. The Madison Heights Library is the most frequently visited city building. In response to falling property tax revenues and reductions in state shared revenues, the city has already reduced weekly operating hours from 61.5 to 50, closed the building for 3 additional days, negotiated union wage and benefit concessions, reduced contractual custodial services, reduced book purchases and magazine subscriptions, initiated revenue measures including keyring library cards, increases to overdue book fines, non-resident user fees, internet fees, and more, eliminated the youth services librarian, and made citywide reductions including workers' compensation, window cleaning, pest control, printing costs, and reduced energy consumption. The city has had to eliminate some services and quality of life programs. The Youth Center, Nature Center, and Library have sustained larger cutbacks than the public safety departments. Without dedicated funding, it will become very difficult to maintain a state-certified library. Virtually all surrounding communities have dedicated library millages. The city of Troy, unsuccessful in establishing a dedicated library millage, plans to close their library by May. The Madison Heights Council selected a dedicated millage to provide a more efficient library operation, utilizing city support services like insurance, finance, payroll, assessing, legal, grounds maintenance, custodial services, and oversight. If the library millage is approved, the city would reinstate weekly library hours from 50 to 56, keep the library open year-round, triple the depleted library books and materials budget to $50,000 per year, replace 5 computers and upgrade internet bandwidth and filter, and reinstate custodial service to 6 days from 3 days per week. A dedicated library millage would allow the city to maintain a state-certified library. The library would no longer have to compete with other city general fund departments for funding. City Council would maintain budget and personnel authority and set the direction for the library's operation. Should the library millage not pass, the city manager has recommended reducing operations to 32 hours per week, laying off 2/3 of the full-time staff, and closing the library completely in August, plus an additional 6 days throughout the year. In addition, residents might lose their ability to check out materials at other libraries. Proposal MR Millage Restoration. The city's general operating millage was set at 10 mills in the 1950s, shortly after the city was incorporated. The maximum allowable millage is not increased in 40 years. The Headley Amendment to the state constitution restricts the growth of revenue to local governments by lowering tax rates as property values rise and ensures that the overall property taxes do not increase by a rate greater than that of inflation. New development is exempt from this provision, so growing communities benefit. But inner-ring suburbs like Madison Heights, with little or no room left to grow, are limited regardless of what happens to their expenses. Proposal A protects individual properties from a significant property tax increase. No matter how much a home appreciates in 1 year, its taxable value, which determines tax bills, can rise by the inflation rate, but never more than 5%. Municipal finance experts say the 2 amendments combine to cripple local governments. When a home is sold, the value may increase, but the local government receives no benefit because the Headley Amendment forces the municipality to reduce the tax rate paid by all other properties. The end result is that overall revenues do not keep up with inflation. Specifically, the Headley Amendment and Proposal A have combined over time to reduce our general operating millage from 10 mills to 8.8, a loss of 1.2 mills or 12%. The police and fire departments make up over half the city budget. The Department of Public Services, which includes street maintenance, solid waste collection, parks and recreation, and senior services, represents an additional 16% of the annual cost. Any further reduction in property values will force the city to further cut services in these critical areas. Over the last 10 years, the city has cut the full-time workforce by 23 positions, or 20%, in the police and fire departments, and 14 positions, or 44%, in the Department of Public Services. An approved Headley override proposal would provide the general fund with an additional $1 million next year, which would partially offset revenue declines, and when combined with other cutbacks, will avoid layoffs in the police, fire, and public services departments. If the voters approve one or both millages, the millage rate would go up, but property owners would still have lower city property tax bills due to the drop in home values. Funding operations. In Michigan, millage rates are levied on a property's taxable value. For almost all Madison Heights residents, a property's taxable value is 1/2 of market value. If future market values increase faster than taxable values, taxable value will be capped each year at the cost of living or 5%, whichever is less. In Madison Heights, single-family residential taxpayers pay 45% of the property tax. The industrial, commercial, apartment, and condominiums pay the remaining 55% of all property taxes. Both residents and businesses will benefit from the continuation of these city services. Based on an average home in 2011, Madison Heights homeowners will have a total annual property tax of between $1,600 and $2,000 per year, depending upon the school district in which the home is located. The city's share of this property tax bill is approximately $736, or 39% of the total. Based on the average market value of $76,320, the average homeowner in Madison Heights would pay $37 per year for library services and/or $44 per year more for general fund operations. Since this levy would continue to be part of your property taxes, the amount is income tax deductible and would reduce the actual out-of-pocket expense to you. On a positive note for taxpayers, the dramatic drop in property values and the related decline in taxable values have resulted in a substantial reduction in the property tax bill. As shown, average property taxes have already declined $151 and are projected to decline to a total of $244 next year, or nearly 25% for an average single-family taxpayer. Using next year's projected average single-family taxable value of $37,393, an additional $1 mil dedicated library millage would cost the average taxpayer $37. A Headley override would increase the general operating levy by 1.2 mils, amounting to an additional $44 for the average taxpayer. Together, the two proposals would cost the average taxpayer a combined $81. Given that property values are scheduled to decline 15.8%, the additional $81 for these two millage proposals would be more than offset by the one-year $93 drop in the city property taxes, still providing the average Madison Heights taxpayer a reduction of $12 in their city property taxes this year. Based on projected property value declines over the following 2 years, city property taxes are projected to fall another $60 even with the passage of both millages. In addition to a special edition citywide newsletter and this video, the city will use several media to communicate information on these ballot proposals, including public presentations, which have been scheduled as follows: Monday, March 28th at the City Council meeting at 7:30 p.m., Tuesday, March 29th at the City Library at 7 p.m., Thursday, March 31st at the Senior Center at 11 a.m., and Thursday, April 7th at the Fire Station Headquarters at 7 p.m. For more information on these ballot proposals, including the ballot language, visit the city's website at madison-heights.org/MH May 3rd election. Tune to the city's municipal cable channels, Comcast Channel 15 and WOW Channel 10. Call the city manager's office at 248-583-0829 or visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/MH May 3rd election. And please remember to vote on May 3rd.